In the world, there is this popular saying, stand your ground. What they mean with it is, when you make a decision, you hold on to it. No matter what other people say, no matter what the situation turns like, you hold on to the decision you made, and others ought to validate your decision. Parents use this when it comes to their children. There are people using it between each other. There are people use it against strangers. Their governments use it against its citizens. Employers against employees. Standing your ground. It's repeated so often, and it's said, if you don't stand your ground, people will walk over you. I'm going to examine this phrase, stand your ground. Because when you look at it carefully, this attitude is an attitude of fear. You have to do this or else something bad's going to happen that you don't want. So now you need to take action so that the bad thing you don't want to happen never happens. That's what it all comes down to. Hold up. Didn't Christ say to us? And doesn't he say to us, be wise as serpent and innocent as doves? There's one thing about serpents and doves, and that they don't have a fixed territory. If you have a fox roams around in a territory that he claims. If you have a dog will also be on key locations to mark a territory, which they claim as their habitat. And the animal will attack every other of their own kind who wants to dwell there. That's what they do. Serpents, they don't have a marked territory. They just go around where it's practical for them to get a prey. Doves, they fly around. They may come off in a certain place if there's food over there, or if it's just to lay some eggs. But doves, they do not have a marked territory. Christ didn't say to be wise as a fox. He said to be wise as a serpent. Standing your ground. It all comes down to validating your will. It's all about relying on your own strength and your own ability to deal with the situation. It comes down to holding on. There's an outcome that you long for, based on an expectation that was formed in the past, and the only thing you want is to maintain this outcome. Even if reality shows you that this outcome may not be the best thing, or it may not work out well in the long run, you don't care. It's all about your expectation. Christ said, yes, let your yes be yes and your no be no. There was a context that went ahead of it. The context was to religious oaths. A religious oath means that you entrust yourself to some pagan deity. And you make the oath to bind yourself to that deity, or to the organization that represents this deity. Because that's how pagans do it. Christ said not to do that. But people take his word out of context and they think, you know what? Christ said, let your yes be yes and your no be no, so if you make a decision, stick to it. That's not what Christ meant. Christ didn't say you can never change your mind. He told us to be flexible. Flexible implies that you examine things and that you adapt. That does not imply a fixed decision or a fixed attitude. Let your yes be yes and your no be no implies to being consistent in a practical manner. Let me give an example. If you agree that, let me say like this, that such and such individual is disruptive, and let's say you align yourself with others who have the same opinion, then you are bound to a yoke of bitterness against another individual. What happens now that you kind of made an oath to hold on to this decision that this individual is disruptive. That's what you're doing. So what happens now is that all your other decisions, because you're holding on to it, must be in line with this decision you've made. So now you're holding on to the past. That's what an oath does. An oath keeps you trapped in the past. But let's say now you follow God. If you follow Christ, that means that you are aligned with Him, and that implies that all that's negative and leads to destruction receives a no from you. So you must be consistent with this attitude. But that's the only consistency that the Lord approves of. If you have someone who holds on to the negative and they're consistent in it, even though it's consistent, the Most High does not approve of it. Neither should other people approve of that. Let your yes be yes. That's your yes towards Christ. And your no be no. That's your no against Satan. Let that remain what it is. That's what Christ was saying. Do not rely on oaths. Rely on Christ's promise to you. Christ made an oath, the Most High sworn an oath on your behalf towards Himself. And that's the only oath you should rely on. So you aligning with Christ means you are in a yes position towards grace. That means that everything that's against grace receives a firm no automatically. It simply means to continue in the faith. It doesn't mean that if you feel a certain way about something, you have to hold on to that feeling. Because in daily life, in human relationships, you have to be flexible. The whole idea of having a fixed image of yourself and expect others to validate that's worldly. It's a trap. It works, but it's a trap. For example, it can be that you have a friend, a female friend, and she couldn't stand a certain girl at work because that girl, or that teenage girl, had what she considered a loose mouth. She wasn't that polite. She was very direct. And now this friend of yours is very upset because of it. And because you share the same background, you tend to agree with her. You align with her view that that other girl was out of hand. What happens now is that because you are in agreement with this unexamined expectation of how someone ought to be, you don't know the girl nor the context in which it took place. Because you don't agree with that friend, now you will likely see that girl in a negative daylight also. And now you may decide you're not hanging out with that individual. Why? Because you want to remain on good terms with that friend of yours. But later you begin to see, hold on a minute, that friend of mine is embittered, and this girl is not the only one she's complaining about. Now you realize that your decision to be aligned against that girl is based on seeking validation from that friend. So now you need to examine your decision and let it go. But let's say now you attend a pagan church. The pagan church will tell you, Christ said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So now you keep holding on to your aversion towards the individual, and that aversion attaches you to the paranormal. Because nobody has any right to hold on to aversion. You can have an aversive stance against evil. There's something wrong with that, but have an aversive attachment towards other people, that's a trap. And Christ wants you free from that. But if you hold on to your aversive attitude towards someone or towards something, and you can't account for it, what happens then is that now you are in bondage. Now you are stuck to an oath. It's the same as pledging an oath when you're making a demonic contract. Now you're not in a demonic contract, but it has a similar effect on you. You're trapped in the paranormal. That's why it's important to rightly divide the word of God. Because many took this phrase, let your yes be yes and your no be no, to mean you need to have fixed expectations and fixed statements. That's not what Christ meant. Let your yes, that means your yes to the Most High, be yes, so continue in the faith, which automatically implies that you do not align yourself with everything that goes against Christ. That's what it means. In daily life, you'll have to adapt your will and your expectations. That's how life works. Anyone who promotes and advocates the contrary, they're not practical or they're delusional. Okay, now let me continue with that parable. Let's say you hold on to your aversion against that girl that your friends are against. One day you hear that friend of yours is embittered about you, she's talking about your back, and she's complaining about you. Now what's going on? That friend of yours is embittered, and now she's addicted to dumping her negative energy. She's addicted to complaining and avoiding responsibility. She doesn't want to take responsibility for her narcissistic attitude. She wants everything her way, the way she feels comfortable. If anything happens outside of how she expects it, she flees. And when she can't flee, she escalates. And she escalated, and that's why she's embittered. And she was seeking relief by complaining to you. So actually she was dumping her frustrations at you, but she thought she was just venting. Well, she was dumping frustration, and you gave her sympathy, and she fed off your sympathy. But she's an addict now, a sympathy addict, so now she has the opportunity to dump at others using you as a target. That's what she's doing now. So now you are betrayed, and now you are the target of someone you least expected. And later you found out that this girl that you had aversion against tried to warn you for that friend of yours. But you thought, I need to stand my ground, my yes is yes and my no is no, no is no, so people have to take it. That kept you trapped. Okay, I'm not saying that if someone tries to exploit you, you can't refuse interaction with them. Then you need to be firm, because there's danger. When it comes to danger, there needs to be a firm no. Okay, that's understandable. But don't hold on to firm expectations that can't be accounted for. People have this self-entitled attitude in general that they just will what they will, and for some reason others have to take what they will. Other human beings may not have a choice but that to deal with your will. But here's the thing, the Most High won't. He won't. And here's the thing, you willing whatever you will, never on the exam your own will, keeps you trapped and keeps you aligned with evil spirits. That's why beware with those that twist the word of God in promoting self-centered agendas. This happens so often that we don't even notice it. Christ said, be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Okay? If you see a dove somewhere and you come close, what happens? The dove flees away. The dove, when it senses danger, it moves. It doesn't stand its ground. A serpent, when the temperature becomes too hot or too cold, it moves to places where the temperature is alright for its health. A serpent, when it's to feed itself, when it's hunting, it moves slowly and to get close to the prey. A serpent doesn't think, you know what, this is my territory, here's where I reside, and everything needs to come on my terms over here. No, because if the serpent would do that, the serpent wouldn't be able to eat, and the serpent would die. So the serpent doesn't consider boundaries of other animals. It moves into their claimed region, and it devours them over there. Well, not really devour, but it hunts on them. A dove doesn't care that much about claimed territories by other birds. A dove goes where a dove can eat, where it's safe to be. Now, I don't want to make this video too long. Maybe I need to make more videos about this subject. Just understand that standing your ground is a worldly attitude that keeps you trapped. It's the same as self-defense. It appears to be something beneficial, but when you look at it on the long term, it works against you. And Christ wants you delivered from those self-counseling and self-destructive attitudes. Stand your ground. It works on the short term. In the long term, you'll be finished. Remember the parable I gave. What if all that friends turned on you? You figured out that this girl that you had aversion against, that she actually is a believer and that she's blessed. Now you missed an opportunity to receive a blessing through someone else because you held on to your expectation. You held on to your will. Your will can be your own worst enemy. But people idolize personal will, and they use Bible verses to vindicate their personal will without checking whether the personal will is, first of all, even worth it, and secondly, if their will is in line with God's will. Align yourself with Christ. Only then will you be at peace. Anything else will only lead to long-term contention. Be at peace.